What's up, gamers? It's Above, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the Seraph Cipher artifact that just dropped with Season 19. There are some insanely strong mods within this artifact, so we're going to be breaking down which ones you guys should unlock first to make sure that you get the best bang for your buck with the XP that you guys will be unlocking over the next week or so. There will definitely be a lot of difficult choices in the final column, so make sure you guys stick around to the end to see which ones you should be going for. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed today's video, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. Now, let's get into it. Starting in the first column, the first mod I want to talk about is Unstoppable Hand Cannon. This is one of my favorite mods simply because it is one of the most consistent endgame PvE weapon types that we have in the game currently. We're going to have weapons like Fatebringer rise back up in the meta, especially in things like Grandmaster Nightfalls, which is definitely one of my favorite weapon types. Next, we have Overload Scout Rifle. This mod hasn't seen play for a couple seasons now, but is definitely incredibly strong, especially if you have something like Explosive Payload on your Scout. It should 2-tap pretty much any Overload champion and does a really great job suppressing them long term and prevents health regen better than most weapon types do overall. Next, we have Piercing Bowstring. I'm not a huge fan of this mod simply because the draw time on bows does detract a little bit from your ability to break champions and can result in them regenning some health from time to time. I just think there are stronger options, and I wouldn't recommend Piercing Bowstring over something like Arbalist or even Anti-Barrier Pulse Rifle, as you guys can see here. AB Pulse is definitely a strong mod, especially those that roll with Disruption Break. They're incredibly strong in things like Grandmaster Nightfalls and Raids, and I would definitely recommend this mod over something like Piercing Bowstring personally. At the bottom, we have Overload Rounds, which will apply to both auto rifles and submachine guns. This has been a repeat mod several times over the last few seasons. They've definitely improved it, but I don't think it's the most consistent mod, and I would definitely recommend something like Overload Scout Rifle over Overload Auto or SMG personally. Heading into column 2, first up we have Grenade Launcher Holster. This is a 1-point mod that gives you great value because the base version of this mod costs you 5 points. So if you're going to be running something like Wendigo, which is an exclusive Grandmaster Nightfall drop this season and could be extremely powerful, especially when you pair it with Breach and Clear, one of the final column artifact mods, this could be This could be very good value, and I definitely recommend unlocking this one. Next up, we have Legacy Ambush, which increases the duration and effectiveness of the Ambush origin trait and the Bray Inheritance origin trait. These are two brand new origin traits introduced during Season 19. Ambush will improve the range, handling, and damage against combatants during the opening moments of an engagement, and this does seem to refresh rather often, so even though it's not the biggest damage bonus in the world, it is relatively consistent with every few enemies that you shoot when you dip in and out of combat. And Bray Inheritance states that dealing damage regenerates a small amount of ability energy. This is the type of mod that I think if you have an extra slot on your helmet for 1 point, you can definitely run it, but based on early testing, these aren't incredibly strong, so I wouldn't go out of your way to fit this mod into your build unless you can do so with virtually no effort. Next up, we have In-Flight Compensator, which increases the airborne effectiveness of all equipped weapons. So for my PvP mains out there, this is going to be a staple mod in PvP this season. If you guys mainly play PvE, this is probably an easy skip for all of you guys. Next up, we have Bow Dexterity. Again, more of a PvP-centric mod. If you guys are in PvE, you're probably not wasting a mod slot on a Dex mod, so these two are probably easy skips. Next, we have Mobile Retrofit, which gives you 5 mobility at the cost of 3 energy. I guess if you guys are really struggling for stats on something like a Hunter build where you need Invis up 100% of the time, and you need that extra stat boost to get you to 100 mobility, I could see you guys justifying this, but for the most part, I'm definitely avoiding this mod. It's literally 50% value of a standard mobility mod, which grants you 10 mobility for 3 points. So unless you guys are stat starved on your builds, I definitely don't recommend this. Next up, we have Hand Cannon Targeting, another PvP-centric mod. This is great value for 1 point because it does significantly reduce the original cost of hand cannon targeting. So if you guys are going to be grinding out your Crucible ranks and competitive this season, I definitely recommend picking this mod up. Next up, we have Pulse Rifle Loader, which will synergize with Anti-Barrier Pulse Rifle in the first slot. This is definitely solid value, especially because all loaders are typically 2 to 3 points, sometimes more for heavy and special weapons, but this is definitely a solid pickup matchup if you guys have room for it. Next, we have Energy Diffusion Substrate. Gain a small amount of resistance to all damage dealt to you by combatants. Additional copies of this mod will increase its effect. Unlike granting resistance against just 2 element types, as you guys can see in the image and description of this mod, it grants damage resistance against arc, void, and solar affinities, which means this is likely not as potent as previous mods, but will grant you some passive damage resistance against all 3 affinities should you need it. And this makes a big difference on something like Artifice Armor, because you can run it alongside Concussive Dampener and then have 2 copies of the Energy Diffusion in your final Artifice slot, which will make this mod even more potent in endgame content. Next, we have Sharpshooting, and of the Origin trait mods, this one is definitely my favorite. Greatly increases the duration and effectiveness of the Text Balanced Stock Origin trait, as well as the, and most importantly, Viced Stinger Origin trait, which is undoubtedly the best Origin trait we have in the game currently. And the fact that we can get an enhanced version of the Vice Stinger Origin trait on an aggressive 3-round burst with Vice Stinger on it could make this mod one of the strongest in the artifact and a sleeper choice for just 1 point. And similar to the previous column, next we have Resilient Retrofit, which gives you a +5 to your resilience for 4 points. So again, if you guys are stat starved on your builds and you need that +5 to get to 100 resilience because you can't otherwise, this would be worth running in that scenario, but otherwise I would avoid these 2 mods entirely. Next up, we have Unstoppable Grenade Launcher. When you ready or reload a grenade launcher for a short period, that weapon will stun unstoppable champions. This is way too expensive in my opinion, especially when you consider that last season we had Overload Machine Gun for just 1 point. They are clearly trying to make you decide between some of the most powerful mods, especially with Breach and Clear in the artifact this season, but I don't think this is worth running in most situations simply because this is so expensive that you limit yourself on other champion stuns as well as loaders. Next up, we have a fan favorite artifact mod that has not been seen since Season of Arrivals, and it is Countercharge. You become charged with light whenever you or a member of your fire team stuns a champion, and when you pair this with something like High Energy Fire, it becomes extremely powerful. So when you stun a champion, you'll get charged with light, you can proc High Energy Fire, kill that champion, and you lose those stacks, which is great because it means that you basically just have a free 20% damage bonus if you're rocking High Energy Fire on your build, and then it falls off once you kill the champion. There's amazing synergy here, and I definitely recommend picking this mod up for 3 points. Next up, we have one of the best value mods in the entire artifact in Advanced Scout. Champions you stun take additional damage from teammates. Now, we'll have to see if this does indeed stack with something like Countercharge, because if these 2 synergize together, it could be extremely powerful in Grandmaster content, but if not, you'll have to make the decision on which one's worth running. Next up, we have Lord Kelvin's Basilisk, which gives your Void and Stasis grenades the ability to disrupt Overload champions, which delays their ability regen and lowers their damage output. This is a very strong mod. This is basically identical to Thermal Overload from several seasons ago, but now in Void and Stasis form, taking the place of Solar. This will be a very strong mod that will help you stun champions for a simple 1 point cost, and I highly recommend picking this mod up. Next up, we have Low Entropy Superconductor, where Stasis and Arc melee abilities stun unshielded combatants, which is strong against unstoppable champions. So we will have the ability to stun 2 separate champion types with just 1 point artifact mods, which is going to free up a ton of space to potentially run something like Unstoppable Grenade Launcher, but you have to really weigh the value on whether Unstop GL for 7 points outweighs something like using a charged melee ability, especially when Arc Titan is as strong as it is currently. As we head into the final column, we have Passive Aggressive Guard, where you receive less damage from combatants that are close to you while wielding a glaive. This could be incredibly strong if you guys are into glaive builds. I know we definitely have our glaive enjoyers out there. I don't personally run them all that much, but if you guys are looking for a defensive solo build in either Lost Sectors or Grandmasters, you'll not only have insane damage resist while blocking, you'll also have a 60% damage resist with the glaive equipped, so you guys will basically be unkillable at all times. Next up, we have Weakened Clear, which is a play on words for a weakened version of Breach and Clear. When using a grenade launcher, damaging a boss, champion, or breaking a combatant shield will reload your stowed weapon and weakens the combatant. Now, they alluded to this in the TWAB that this will synergize with Void 3.0's level of Weaken, which is a 15% debuff compared to Breach and Clear's 30% debuff from a few seasons ago, so this will still definitely be strong in certain situations, especially when you consider that Divinity has been nerfed from 30 to 15%. So if you're in a solo environment or in a team environment where you are using GLs as your DPS strat, which could be the case with Wendigo coming out this season, this could definitely be a solid pickup. Next up, we have a mod that I am extremely excited about, which is brand new, and it is called Monochromatic Maestro. Dealing damage with elemental abilities grants increased damage to weapons of the same element for a short duration. And dealing damage with elemental weapons grants increased damage to abilities of the same element for a short duration. To me, this seems like a swan song to the Heart of Inmost Light Titans out there, because you're going to be using those storm grenades all season long, especially with something like Storm Chaser, and it kind of seems like what they did with Breach and Clear and Anarchy a few seasons ago. It seems like you're going to have increased damage on your storm grenades, and then you're also going to have increased damage on your Storm Chaser if you synergize those builds together, and cycling those abilities between one another is going to be absolutely insane for DPS phases, so I definitely recommend giving this one a try. Next up, we have one of the most unique mods that I've seen in an artifact in a very long time, and this one is called Solo Operative. While you're the only member of your fire team, you deal increased damage to all combatants. So for all my solo Lost Sector farmers out there, as well as anybody who likes a challenge soloing GMs, this mod is for you. We'll obviously have to see what this damage bonus is, but they're typically in that 20 to 30% range of a damage increase, and if that's the case, having this for free at all times is unbelievably powerful, and pairs with our final mod, which is a returning one and a fan favorite at that, in Lucent Finisher. Defeating a Lucent Hive Lightbearer or champion with your finisher spawns heavy ammo for you and your allies. Now this is interesting because we don't actually have Lightblade as a Grandmaster this season, and there aren't any other Grandmasters that contain Hive Bearers in them, so this is mainly going to be useful for you in a couple areas. First of all, in Grandmasters, you can run Aeons for your fire team and run Lucent Finisher on champions, and the person finishing the champion still gets ammo while your teammates get double heavy drops, which means you can be far more aggressive clearing Grandmaster Nightfalls, which should help speed up your runs significantly and make that heavy ammo far more consistent. And it's the same thing in solo Lost Sectors, where you can self-sustain heavy ammo simply by getting some finishers. Anyways, guys, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. You can also catch me over live on Twitch right now, streaming the brand new Destiny season, so feel free to swing on by and say hello. Anyways, that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.